Hello everyone, welcome to the NRPA Mobil 1 Cup Series pre-race show. We're in the second race of the season for the Coors Light 150 at Pikes Peak. I'm here with my good friend Ricky Hawkins, who is the voice of WRA. Ricky, what's going on, man?
Not much. I'm excited, NRPA's back. We just came off of a phenomenal Daytona 250 with a complete upset winner. Buddy.
Let's talk about that race real quick before we go into the
Indeed.
Yeah, before we get talking about the Pikes Peak stuff. Oh my God, what a race that was! That was unbelievable.
Indeed. I think Carl Toledo proved us wrong.
Who picked? Well, the thing is, Carl Toledo proved us wrong, but then again, he didn't qualify for the race for Pikes Peak.
That just goes to show you how much of a pendulum momentum is here in NRPA.
No, I don't think it's momentum. I think it actually has to be with the team he's with.
Very true.
You see, I just pulled up the qualifying results. Out of 35 cars, he finished 26th. Where am I surprised here?
This is where I would put a surprised face if I had one. This frankly does not surprise me in the slightest bit. And I mean, look at all the cars. But if you want to talk about something that's insulting, look at all the cars that finished below him. That's got to be an insult to finish below Scott Motorsports.
Oh yeah. Well, let's see. That Daytona race, I gotta say, there was a lot of hard hits that we saw, but
indeed,
it was
one of the biggest ones that I think everybody remembers. Michael Lawson.
And I feel bad that he missed the race. I was kind of hoping I was pulling for him after that wreck that he would make this race, but
indeed.
Wow, what he barrel rolled, he rode the wall, barrel rolled, and then drove away, and just to end his race with a fuel leak.
Yeah, and that's gotta be disappointing.
Another driver, just looking at the results here. Chris Winter in the 10 car, he ended up getting a second place finish. I didn't think we'd see much out of him this race.
Yeah, and that meme-based Chevrolet did really great in the Daytona 250. And two other drivers who I think did amazing in Daytona were, no surprise here, Becky Newland and Lindsey Morrison. Lindsey Morrison surprised everyone by getting a top 5 in her debut.
And Becky Newland, I know she was running a lot with Landon Underwood. Landon Underwood actually ended up getting a 9th place finish, but Becky Newland did end up finishing 12th. She really did do a good job during that race. Another guy that surprised me during that race was Denny Carson's in the 44 car. Raced his way in row 22 equipment. I don't know how good their equipment is, but don't really have the best of sponsors with Host Skater and
Redline Oil.
But they really, he got in a wreck, but he just kept going and did a great job.
Indeed.
One guy I just want to point out that I know a lot of people aren't happy with, especially Felix Nagel, is Dan Fortner.
Dan Fortner.
Boy.
The biggest nuisance in NRPA to date, probably.
Wrecked. And the thing is, we're worried. I'm worried that he's going to do it during Pikes Peak. I mean, if he does keep on wrecking cars, I do believe that NRPA will go. They will take action against this. At least put him on probation or something.
Indeed, and Dan Fortner's team owner Billy will probably be quick to defend Dan, but there's really no defending what he did at Daytona. He was just outright wrecking people.
I mean,
he was being a nuisance to everybody.
Just remember, you gotta defend your drivers. They're your drivers.
Indeed.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would be surprised if Billy didn't defend his driver. If I had a team in NRPA, I would defend my drivers. So
I would too.
Just another few notes. You saw Carl Toledo won the race, and his teammate Brian Hansen got 4th, but just to show how good the equipment is at Scott Motorsports, Hayden Gibbs left the race because of I mean, he had to retire from the race because of an engine problem.
Indeed, and Carson's we saw, or not Carson's, Hayden Gibbs.
Yeah.
We saw how slow he was near the end of the race. His car fell off something fierce.
Um, Eric Webler ended up finishing 41st, and Tyrone Kessler finished 38th. That's not going to be good going in. And Casey Lester finished 39th. That's not going to be good when it comes time to the only top 30 cars are locked in.
Indeed, and a lot of good cars had issues at Daytona. It was a bad race for a lot of
Holloway.
people.
I was expecting to see something from Ryan
Alexa
Wilcox.
Jameson had a bad
Yep.
race. Tanner Clayson wound up 32nd.
The LaCoya cars.
Indeed. Dale Quinn Jr., Ryan
Yeah.
Wilcox.
Well, I think that's enough of. This is the pre-race show. This is
Yes.
the pre-race show for the Pikes Peak race. Let's talk about Pikes Peak.
Indeed. And let's talk about some of the cars that got in this race.
One guy who won the race is
James Kessner, car number
one-off
07.
start. I hope to see him. Right now, they only have Pikes Peak lined up on the schedule to be for him to race, but that performance during the qualifying race, I'm sure he's going to do good during the race, and I hope that we'll see that 07 car run a few more races this year.
Indeed. And James Kessner was unstoppable during the Q race. No one could even come close. And a funny story comes out of this, too. Allie Thompson, in the other 07 car, now has to change her number this race. She will now be running the 58 due to James Kessner getting in.
One guy who got an 11th place finish during the Daytona race, and who made the race for the Daytona, also made the race, finishing second place in the qualifying. Ryan Raycroft with the Ripper Energy Dodge for Zachary INC. The second entry for Zachary INC, I didn't think we would see much out of the second entry for. It's not a huge has a last name of Zachary, but Ryan Raycroft for number 2010 almost won the championship. Didn't do anything in 2011. He was with a terrible team. And back again this year with a good team, really finally having the performance he needs. Got a second place, and now he's in the Pikes Peak race. Really he deserves to be doing good.
Indeed, and I would agree. Ryan Raycroft, he is, I think, a potential driver to do a lot of good things this year with that Zachary Incorporated car. And the thing is, being that he doesn't have the last name Zachary, some people think, maybe he shouldn't be on that team. But then again, Ryan Raycroft is already showing that is not true at all.
Another guy who made this race, who did a fantastic job, didn't get the finish he deserved, but we did already talk about him. Denny Carsons, who is in the Pikes Peak race, finished third in the qualifying race. I think he's definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with this season. He's done fantastic.
Indeed. The Row 22 cars might find themselves in victory lane before we know it. And another driver who I think did really good in the Q race, got themselves in the race, finishing 6th, Scott Morales in the 74.
He's really showing how good these Light-Glider racing cars are. Chris Winter did a fantastic job in the 10 car during the Daytona race. And he's doing Scott Morales now showing how good that team is. So now we'll have another car for Light-Glider racing in the Pikes Peak race.
Indeed. And you know who I feel bad for, though? They were almost in this race. But due to Becky Newland having the fast champion provisional, they did not make it. Carl Hammerling in the 91.
That Leicester Racing, first off, I think they were all pulling for him to make that race in the 91 because last week, both of the Leicester Racing cars finished below 38th, if I remember. Let me see.
Yep.
Finished below 39th or below. 39th
and
42nd.
Alexa Jameson was last in that race.
And I think they were hoping for Carl Hammerling to be in the race.
And two drivers that really surprised me that are not in this race, though, are Randy Rome Jr. and Lance Havis.
Yeah, Randy Rome Jr.'s he did a fantastic job, actually, with Gardner Racing in 2010. And Lance Havis, he's already done a fantastic. He's won. I think did he win a championship? No, he got really close to winning a championship a few years, but he has a few wins. He just isn't running as good as he used to run.
Yeah, and I think this new car is really throwing a curveball to Lance Davis. It's taking him a long time to get used to these cars. Some drivers have gotten used to it instantly, but there are some drivers who are still struggling to get used to this car.
Well, let's talk about the drivers who are in the Pikes Peak race. We got two, well, other than Tyrone Kestner, but Eric Webler.
Yeah, and the
He
defending
need
champion of this race also, Tori Webler.
they both need a good run this race. They were both taken out Daytona. They don't want to have to, especially Eric Webber. Eric Webber will be taking up another spot if Eric Webber, if he is not locked in. Becky Newland's going to be locked in, but say Becky Newland wasn't locked in, Eric Webber would get the past champion provisional because he is higher. He is more recent of a champion, and I know Eric does not want to be using that past champions provisional. If he doesn't do good here today, he's going to need a win at Pocono for any hope.
Indeed. And, it's really a surprise to see Webler Motorsports struggling like this.
I mean, I think Michael Lindsay starting in the top. He's starting third place in this race. He's really the only guy that I've seen really have some do well in during the races.
Indeed.
I mean, he didn't do that good. He got a 25th place finish. He was one of the last drivers to get involved in a wreck, but he's the only one that's really been showing speed here today during the Pikes Peak practice and qualifying.
Yep, and Michael Lindsay, I've been watching the KNS this year. Michael Lindsay has had a struggle all year long.
NRPA is where his heart is, and that's where he's been able to do very well. He has a career. I think he's won twice. He's won either once or twice in NRPA, and it's gonna be a matter of time before he wins this year because his 81 car is running very well with Verizon sponsoring the car.
Indeed, that 81 car is something fierce. And another driver whose heart belongs to NRPA, Jeff Lamb, got 7th place at Daytona.
Fantastic. He had a terrible year. The first in 2010, his rookie year, and then 2011. Really turning it around this year. Really, finally, this new car. I think that's what it might want to be. He's with Mitsubishi again. Mitsubishi is one of his favorite brands, and being running with them and this new car, he finally, I think, has found it.
Yeah, he's found what he's been missing all this time here in NRPA, and I think this is going to lead to great things.
Well, after finishing 5th in the Daytona race, Rebecca Simpson is the pole sitter for this race. What do you think of her? Definitely had a great start to this year.
Indeed, and she started last at Daytona and got 5th place. And you said it during the Daytona pre-race show, Rebecca Simpson is going to do great things this year, and I'm inclined to believe you. I think Rebecca Simpson is already showing that she has got something this year that could bring her to a championship.
Well, I think we're going to have to wrap it up soon. I don't want to make this pre-race show too long because you guys want to see the racing. I want to bring a note to who's starting, Becky Newland. She is driving the Ford EcoBoost Ford today. It's been since 2004. She's been sponsored by Radio Shack. It's since 2006 or 2007. She's ran Radio Shack on the car every single race. And so for the first time in the past 5 years, Becky Newland will be driving with a Ford EcoBoost paint scheme and is being the primary sponsor on her car. I think it's a nice looking car. It'd be nice to see that out there. So, Ricky, who's your pick today to win the race?
Well, I got to go with the guy who took this race last year, Tori Webler. Even though he did not have that good of a year, or that good of a race at Daytona, Tori Webler is amazing at Pikes Peak, and I think that Coors Light Dodge is going to find its way to victory lane here in the Rocky Mountains.
I think I'm going to go with our pole sitter, Rebecca Simpson. Really, this track is known. I think it's known for the pole sitters really having a strong finish, and some of those times that strong finish is a win. And so hopefully,
before we wrap this up, who do you think is going to be on the opposite end of the fence? Who's going to be the driver that does not do anything?
Dan Fortner.
I'd have to agree with you there. And also, I'd have to say, sorry, Batson Nation, but Keith Batson, his performance at Daytona was nothing more than a fluke.
Well, dark horse. You had a dark horse for today's race?
A dark horse, personally, if I had to pick a dark horse, I'd say Jeffrey Lamb. You know, we talked about him being really good, and I think he could surprise people today with a good run here at Pikes Peak.
My dark horse, I got dark horses. They happen to be brothers, Tyrone Kessler and Jeremy Kessler. I think the two hometown boys, we're gonna see them. We're gonna see them run really do good
Indeed.
today, and they might be stealing it. Well, they'll wrap up the pre-race show for the Coors Light 150. I am Ben Nathan.
And I am Ricky Hawkins.
Thanks for being here to listen to us today.
Indeed.